game in this best of 3. Record 3-1 and 1-3. CLG giving hope that things can start to improve quickly here. First ban on the table, Rise, matched by a Rengar. TSM doing the very standard red side bans.
Yeah, and we are on patch 7.2 for the first time in the North American LCS, or first week rather, in the North American LCS. Varus probably rised a bit in priority. Also, LeBlanc, Camille, and Rengar are unchanged from patch 7.1, so still expect heavy ban priority on those 3.
Absolutely, we'll see what comes through. Syndra ban, and then a long delay from TSM turns into LeBlanc. And back to CLG's turn as they're banning away Jace, another champion that has risen very heavily in value.
Yeah, and that's potentially just because they want to be able to first pick something like a Kha'Zix and not give over too much. There's also the question of whether or not you'd want to pick Varus if he really is that much better than the rest of the ADs, but TSM says nope, they'd rather have Jhin as the first pick Kha'Zix. Was no surprise by CLG.
Interesting, and actually we see Ivern in North America. It has been a long time we've seen this champion elsewhere, NA basically not playing it at all, and Svenskeren says, yeah, really valuable here.
Yeah, it's about time. He's the second most picked jungler right now in Europe this week, so definitely increasing in popularity. I feel like he's been good since week 1, but he's particularly stronger this week due to some of the small changes they made in the jungle, like later spawn times, and the jungle hits a little harder, and that doesn't affect Ivern at all.
Right, so compared to every other jungler in the game, he is much, much less affected and does raise his stock a little bit. Maokai picked up as the top laner for Darshan, and CounterLogic Gaming now almost round out their first phase of picks. Mid lane, bot lane, and support left to choose. The question is, do they grab a Varus now or risk getting a couple marksmen banned away from them in the second ban phase?
Yeah, it really depends on how much they want to opt into the standard style of the ADs that build a bunch of longswords and basically play like a mage with physical damage. It is the common trend because they don't want to get overscaled, but they go with something completely different.
This is very atypical. No one...
Yeah, it is.
So there's two thoughts I have on this. First of all, no one really cares about Sivir. It wouldn't be banned away. So CLG, I think, are looking more for counter picks than anything. Otherwise, they'd pick a high priority champion, like a Corki, for example, or heck, Zyra that's still up on the table.
Yeah.
But then second to that, you've got the fact that I wonder if we're going to see a different build on Sivir. The big criticism of Sivir as a champion was it takes so long to reach 3 crit items and actually be very powerful in the late game. We might see lethality Sivir as an earlier spiking champion to bridge the earlier difficulties you used to have.
It's possible. Sivir's been picked 2 times this week in EU, both by Steelback and by Hjarnan, and they did go with the Essence Reaver build, so they might just be using it for the scaling and the wave clear. Interestingly enough, we're seeing a few more atypical things here with the fairly early Gangplank pick. Remember, Courage the Colossus is nerfed a little bit. Gangplank has been a thing you have been able to pick in a Maokai in the past as far as being able to farm up the lane. But yeah, no Varus in this game is one peculiar thing. And then the early Sivir pick, I think, definitely ranks as the more atypical thing.
Definitely more atypical. We'll see what the final bans end up being. Of course, you expect tier list wise that Zyra is the first pick on the red side here as TSM goes through their final ban of the draft.
Yeah.
CLG, you can see they've already banned one support with the Malzahar off the table. We'll see if they think they have a counter to it overall. Bard removed from Aphromoo, of course, a big playmaker. Although CLG do have engaged tools already with Sivir and Maokai.
Yeah, Aphromoo did say in an interview after last week that they really need, as a team, to adjust to the meta. Aphromoo is so used to playing on the initiator supports, yet currently it's so much about the control mages that he's kind of struggling to adapt to that. So with the bans being made to Malzahar and Zyra, the control mages are a little bit out in this one, and maybe he could pick a bit of an initiation role, but with the Bard being banned, that also becomes a struggle.
And of course, the crowd oohs and ahs. For what it's worth, I have seen Warwick's support in my games actually was surprisingly effective. It still just sticks to a hovering Warwick because it's what he likes to do. It's one of his favorite champions, but we'll see what it ends up being. They need a support and they need a mid laner.
Yeah, and they're most likely going up against Corki in the mid lane, so who he could go with the classic Aurelion Sol. He's played it once so far this year, and they got a pretty large early lead, but were unable to transition it into much. Now they're trying to build up a lot of wave clear in both the mid and bottom lanes, and potentially use that to pressure the map.
See if they can. It could be a very aggressive team. They've got some dive power against Sivir, Maokai, Kha'Zix, all very good at forward motion. And even Aurelion Sol scales really well off of movement speed. The only thing it really cares about is his positioning. So there is soft synergies, and it's going to be even more move speed. Karma picked up as the support, the blind support pickup here. Biofrost now to grab his support himself to round out the lineup.
Yeah, so aside from the Kazakhs, this is very much the type of team composition you could have seen from CLG at Worlds even, as far as the champions that were meta then. So a few different things going down here with all the support bans. Karma's still a pretty solid pick. And Biofrost, I think with his 3rd Thresh game of the year, going to try and add that pick potential for TSM now with the Ivern as well as the Jhin. A lot of skill shots that could potentially land, a lot of people down.
Very interesting. So the Soul, I guess it's 2 half tanks. It's Svenskeren and Biofrost who are going to be holding up the front lines here for TSM, neither of which can build outright tanky that easily. Yeah. But with 2 of them together should be enough.
Not an incredibly strong front line, but still a lot of damage built in for TSM. And then if you look at CLG, this is their attempt to be a little bit different as far as the meta picks. You would expect something like a Varus and a Cassiopeia if you're going with a pure meta team comp.
Right.
Sivir and Aurelion Sol does speak more to Counterlogic Gaming's strengths of the past, hoping to pull a little bit from that success.
And we do know that who he's Aurelion Sol is incredibly strong. This Sivir definitely throws us for a loop. And Varus not even picked or banned in the entire champ select, so really not things we were expecting in a 7.2 when the champion's comparably stronger when his favorite items got buffed. But that's going to be the draft for this game. I'm sure Park was not expecting that, but it's what they came through with in this. As game 1, you can see the comps on your screen.
Absolutely, and we're getting this underway. As you mentioned, CLG 1-3 heading into this matchup. TSM 3-1. Still super early in the season. We were kind of talking about this yesterday. Yeah. It's like CLG wins this game and suddenly they're 1 game back of TSM, so plenty of splits still yet to be played. And it's not the first time CLG has been off to a slow start. They're hoping to make those improvements. And
we know CLG can do it. The power of teamwork is strong with this squad. The fans have faith. The TSM ones do as well. As we head into game 1 of this best of 3, TSM CLG, beginning of week 3. Here we go.
All right.
Always love when games start with the chants. Thank you to our wonderful audience for always being such a good part of the show. And we are here to run ourselves into the river.
Pretty strong CLG chants in there as well.
Yeah.
So I feel like depending on the successes in this game, we're going to hear either the CLG or the TSM chants. Early on in the game as well, pay a lot of attention to how well the mid and the bottom lane can shove for CLG, because that may or may not open up Smithy trying to invade. One thing that we talk about when we look at Ivern jungle pathing is just how easily he can counter jungle you, because the standard start for Iverns is to tap or channel on some of the early jungle camps, because there's about a 40-second delay early on in the game before he can take them for free, save his smite, and then go for an enemy buff and use his first smite over there. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but it's very rare that you see an Ivern not successfully counter jungle at least one camp.
Yeah.
So you make it much more dangerous for the Ivern to invade if you can have shoving lanes where you think he's going to be trying to invade. So really pay attention to where Huhi and Stixxay can get these lanes.
Yeah, it is worth pointing out that Ivern, unlike most of the popular junglers, is not very good at getting away from things, right? Jumping over walls requires tagging a minion or something with your Q, and getting out tends to be hard unless you can magically find a scuttle crab to leech yourself to. You can see Huhi making a nice early play, shoves the wave in, puts a ward down to spot. That's actually pretty good. He surmises that Ivern started topside and then wanted to invade, would invade through this bottom river.
Yeah, and this is, I'd say, the most standard Ivern start, where you start on your red and Raptors, run over to get your blue, and then channel on the way back. And by the time he gets to his Raptors and red buff again, they will turn, so he'll be able to just collect those, and that'll either transfer to him going and stealing the enemy Gromp with the smite that's going to be coming off the cooldown by the time he gets there, or ganking top lane.
Speaking of top lane, they're going to be battling back and forth. We expect Haunter to get an eventual lead. Has lost some HP in a trade, as you can see in the top right of your screen, but otherwise, Counterlogic Gaming in the blue side, getting the early pressure lead in the bot lane. Perfect CS in the first 2 waves for Stixxay. That's actually very good of him. Sivir has very low base attack speed, and you have to use the W reset or your Q to hit minions if they're getting low at the same time.
Yeah.
He's just shoving in. And miss 2 CS overall is not too bad.
So Svenskeren has been doing the safest possible Ivern route from the looks of it. Still going to have a smite up, and he's going to end up running into Kha'Zix in the Gromp area right now. Push him out a little bit.
I do want to point out something that I've seen almost every bot laner do is they're all going Longsword 3 potions now that started basically in week 2 of the LCS, and it's gone to basically everyone. And for most of these champions, they just want to buy a Serrated Dirk early or even an Essence Reaver, and that just ends up smoothing out your build path. You're not dumping 450 gold into a Doran's Blade. And the 2 extra potions makes it really easy to stay in lane, even though you're missing the lifesteal and the extra HP. And this just ends up power spiking you earlier. And right, if the concern is always that these bot lane marksmen aren't scaling up in time, this shortcuts their build by 400 gold and makes them scale up a bit quicker. They're just missing some of the lifesteal that could have happened, maybe would have mattered in the mid-game team fights.
Yeah, I feel like it's an interesting evolution of that bottom lane right now. It also opens up for more all-ins. We should note as well, Hauntzer did burn Flash at level 2, so Xmithy now jumping onto Svenskeren. Hauntzer can't help.
Here, flashing, there's the root coming in, and Huhi's nearby as well. Sven's got no way out anymore. That's gonna be first blood counter logic gaming buffs over to Huhi.
Yeah, and that was so much about Svenskeren just getting really greedy for an early ward because his lanes weren't shoving. We talked about counter jungling and paying attention to where the lanes were. Well, mid lane wasn't shoved up either, and they were able to just collapse on him as soon as he tried to go for a ward.
And more success in the bot lane as well for counter logic gaming. You can see if the tank support misses his CC, you can go right back onto him. TP to rejoin the lane. Of course, keep in mind, Hauntzer is flashless. Xmithy and Darshan could flash root if they think they have the damage. Does he want to? The slow is enough. The knockback's going to be there. The barrel chain, and Hauntzer's got nowhere to go. Look at that. The sapling takes him out. 2-0 CLG.
You couldn't ask for a much better start than that. Darshan burns the flash from Hauntzer at level 2. They get double buffs transferred onto their mid laner, and then they get a post-teleport kill onto the enemy top while the wave is pushed against him. So this is Hauntzer's going to get heavily denied in that top lane. That is one of the worst things that can happen, but it's going badly all over the map.
You can see him right here. Wants to set up the barrel, explodes it early because he sees Xmithy. Yeah, Chase out just so easy at this point.
I mean, and it's a 4-second channel on teleport. Hauntzer, the wave was in the wrong spot for Hauntzer the whole time, and it was in the wrong spot when Svenskeren was up top, and really so much of this play started several minutes ago. If Svenskeren would have just been up there to guard against the gank and help Hauntzer safely shove in so he could bounce the wave back, that would have been acceptable. And that's what Svenskeren's doing right now. He just needs to be here for Hauntzer so they can try and get that wave into the turret, so Hauntzer just stops getting denied.
Absolutely agree. You can see even some nice plays right there, some nice synergy. Rush on the barrel so that no one can last hit it and knock it down. Not that Darshan could anyway on a Maokai, but yeah, and also keep in mind, you had pointed this out a while ago, Hauntzer had no flash. There was a level 2 all-in that Darshan basically prompted that made Hauntzer blow flash and get chunked out of lane, and that was even part of the first blood that happened, is part of the reason Hauntzer couldn't help Svenskeren a while ago. So Darshan, I got to give him a lot of personal credit to, up 25 minions in a matchup that Hauntzer wanted. Yeah. And for a player that's been getting so much flack for his gameplay, I feel like Darshan's last roughly year has been a bit of a darker mark on his record. This is a very good start.
I agree with that. Just missed that cannon minion, unfortunately, but he's staying aggressive and trying to keep Hauntzer back. Keep in mind, like, GP is not expected to win a lane early on. He's very much about a scaling champion, but 41 CS to 15 is much more than you expect, and that does happen from the early flash burn and also the assistance that Xmithy and Huhi have been able to give him. So really tough time for Hauntzer in this lane, and Darshan playing this matchup right.
And it's staying tough too. That lane is still frozen in front of Darshan's turret. Hauntzer doesn't get to do anything. Hook from brush. 6A he just knows enough about the game to stay outside of hook range of that brush, and
Huhi coming top.
Again.
Still no flash on Hauntzer.
Yeah, sees that there's a ward. Yeah, Renarelian Soul flies. Both he and other people can see over walls against him. He's like, that's warded, never mind. Hauntzer ran back. And Hauntzer will be level 6 soon. That ulti, even if he's held down in lane, he can use that to assist the rest of the map. Maybe we start seeing better things out of this gameplay.
Yeah, and this is kind of the moment in the game that COD needs to keep up the pressure. Xmithy's going for some pretty aggressive plays inside Svenskeren's jungle, hoping to just... You think he's hoping to take the red. Oh, he's going for Sven. Level 6, though.
Level 5, level 6. Daisy is in. So is the rest of the Event Horizon. They're going to go for the pushback there, trying to get the rest of the damage down. Can't quite make it happen. A Smite gets rid of Daisy. Goodbye. But that's actually some pretty good fighting from Sven getting his ulti.
It's true. I mean, when Svenskeren is level 6, is when he becomes very good against Kha'Zix because he can eliminate the isolation bonus that he would be getting for it, and that's exactly what he does there.
Flashes in. One no shot. Nicely done, Bjergsen. The summonerless Huhi goes down.
Huhi getting a little greedy with the wave when he comes back to lane, and Sticks getting jumped on.
Beautifully played here by Biofrost and Turtle. The flash play. Couldn't predict it in time. 6-8 probably should have preemptively flashed, didn't do it. Nice kill for TSM, ties up the score.
Yeah, and it was looking pretty grim for TSM being down 2,000 plus gold pre 8 minutes, but being able to get multiple kills across the lanes really going to keep them in the game and kind of lower that sense of urgency that they may have been feeling.
Absolutely, he's gonna feel a lot better. This game's only 700 gold apart, and that is completely manageable. Bjergsen up 4 minions, bot lane pretty much equal as well, so as long as Hotzer gets a bit back, they're gonna be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Huhi just in the lane pretty long and thinking he'd be safe by threatening Bjergsen with that stun. Nice flash by Bjerg to get over and finish the kill. And then at this point, yes, 6A had flash and heal, but was not able to flash any of the CC and just should have preemptively burned his summoner spells, otherwise dead.
I don't know if spells were up at the time, but certainly wasn't able to cast it there if it wasn't cooled down. It was still a good play by Biofrost. You got to give credit to TSM for making the opening move, and Aftermoo had roamed out of the lane, and it was the easy time for the 2v1. And now, how about a 3v1? Into the mid lane they go. Xmithie got a face check, the brush, the kingdom of Svenskeren, and he flashes in time to not get hooked away, but here comes Bjergsen. There's the play, out they go. Triple stun for Huhi, but that's gonna be it. Hotzer finally getting revenge from the top lane gank. The ult takes him out. Huhi can't chase through the box. And that is a 1-for-0 TSM.
Yeah, and CLG also burned Sivir ultimate in the river, trying to collapse onto TSM there. So overall, a very successful roam, and TSM really fighting back. You'd think CLG with that early lead could have closed out a little bit more, but Xmithie never got an experienced lead on his Svenskeren, even after being able to take out his double buffs. And then the few kills that TSM was able to get back in the lane have enabled them to make a lot of these roam plays to try and keep the aggression on.
Yeah, TSM tying it up basically, and we'll see how much more aggressive they can get here. You got Svenskeren again into the enemy base, enemy jungle I should say, killing off this control ward on the tri-brush. And now TSM looking so much better than they did in the first 5 minutes of this game. And even Hansa, you can see that minion deficit has actually shrunk from before, both in flat value and percentage-wise. He can't quite stop the recall, and Bjergsen has enough control over mid lane. He's okay. Xmithie unlucky there. I think they would have liked to make the roam to bot lane or maybe go for the Drake.
Yeah, I think that could have set up for a very quick Drake rush. Kha'Zix's one of the best Drake killers in the game. Doing it on top of the board, but they're about 5 seconds delayed on this because of the failed plant. We'll see if that hurts them as Svenskeren and Wild Turtle are closing in.
Should be okay. Turtle slow act. This could be a stun. Has to flash away. Barely gets it in time. Stun still lands, but that is a kill. And Xmithie should have leap to get over the wall. No panic there. And a 11-minute Ocean Drake. Very good for the laning phase.
Yeah, I think overall some sloppy play from both teams there. There's CLG missing the blast cone over the wall, and then Wild Turtle not really doing anything except burning his flash when he went to stop that and waiting for the rest of his team. Also want to point out Svenskeren's maxing Q on Ivern instead of the shield, which is something people did a lot on launch of Ivern until most people decided shield was better. The Q does have some good rank up incentives with the cooldown reduction, as well as increasing the loop duration, but the shield is normally just such a better combat summoner, so Svenskeren really just going for picks with that choice.
And it is worth pointing out, some of Sven's contemporaries are still doing shield max, amazing. For example, on Fnatic's been playing Ivern today and was doing shield max still in his game. So different strokes for different folks, it seems right here. Nice job on Darshan knocking down the barrel. That could have been deadly. But CLG's dual lane right here behind it. Again wins the barrel fight, but look out, here comes the play. Ulti in, wave clear in for the GP ulti, and so keep him safe.
Yeah, and Hanser going relatively aggressive with what's essentially a 3-man gank, but a pretty ineffective 3-man gank. If they just burn the GP ultimate, it'll be about what they can do from here. CLG is a big fan of the delayed lane swap, and they usually do that to try and get first turret. So they burn the GP ultimate and the flash. Now it's about whether or not they can rush down this turret before TSM can get it on the other side.
It's going to be a bit close. We expect Karma to have more damage output than a Thresh. In fact, now you've got the Kha'Zix here as well. Huhi even adding his own pressure, make sure it's going to go all right. And CLG, I believe, should be faster on the play.
Yep.
Yeah, this turret going down rapidly. Huhi, just the insurance. He will miss a wave in mid because of this, but it still might have been the right play if it guarantees first turret gold.
Yeah, they once again get the first turret, and now it's also about the extension of the play because they have a tempo lead right now. Notice they killed that turret about 8 seconds before TSM was able to kill theirs. So not only did they get the first turret gold, they also have the time to get the deep wards inside Svenskeren's jungle.
And that's going to be a lot of vision that CLG can play with. This top side is theirs. I don't know if they're going to get to grab Rift Herald for themselves, but at least they can steal the red buff away, and that feels pretty good as he goes back to mid to clear away, and Counterlogic Gaming only on this 100 gold lead, basically tied right here, as now we get to see which team can make the bigger plays as we head into the mid game.
Yeah, a fair bit of variance in the first 13 minutes. So if you're just tuning in now, you're thinking it's going to be this really close game. But no, CLG was actually off to a spectacular start, getting double buffs off the jungler, then getting the kill top lane as well. So you think CLG had an opportunity to snowball the game, but were just unable to do so. Bjergsen picked up a kill in the mid lane, and since then, it's kind of now on CLG to try and make the plays.
Flash root, Turtle doesn't have flash to get himself out, but the Lantern's gonna be there anyway. Daisy for just good insurance. Look at that. Looks so clean. Out they go.
Yeah. Once again, they're trying to just rotate their AD and jungler and threaten a roam from the mid laner to get more turret pressure, but TSM just catching up to that one, and CLG's unable to push this one, having the package being picked up recently by Bjergsen. They have to respect the Corki roam bot lane.
They do, and of course keep in mind bot lane outer turret is dead as well on CLG's side. They've got to respect that. Look at the poke, just Huhi never juking behind his minions. Bjergsen just has a clean line for missile barrage. That's gonna make life a little bit more difficult. Huhi able to regen back up, and he's gonna grab blue buff and then recall. But Bjergsen's still with priority. Gets to take away Raptors. That's like, I think 2 or 3 times in a row, this camp has been stolen away from CLG.
Yeah, over 100 gold in this Raptor camp now, as well as a large amount of experience. So that definitely hurts Xmithie. It's hard for most junglers to keep up with Ivern in the first place as far as experience, just because how fast you can clear jungle camps. It's even harder when the enemy mid laner is taking your juiciest camp.
Absolutely agree. For the Xmithie, his gold is inflated by sharing some of that first turret gold, but is individually 600 gold above Svenskeren, but down a level. And you can kind of see, right, as far as jungle clear is concerned, it is going a bit better for that Ivern. Hauntzer and Darshan splitting off from the top side. Hauntzer sadly doesn't one-shot Cassie, but with a second barrel can do so. Once Trinity Force is done, that should change a bit. Otherwise, they're just pairing off, but TSM, you can see earning more gold overall. Some of that is Gangplank existing. He does print money, as pirates tend to do. The shopkeeper can't tell it's counterfeit.
Yeah, there you go. Easy. What's interesting to me about this game as well is just how much map movement is going to come into play. These aren't necessarily your standard frontline with large amounts of poke team compositions we've been seeing in most of the LCS. There's a lot of skill shot reliance for TSM, and then a lot of just rotational ability by CLG with the Karma, Sivir, and Aurelion Sol, trying to match this mid lane roam by TSM.
See how much more they can get through this mid game. You can see TSM putting the pressure on the mid lane. CLG had to play back against that. Huhi, for the most part, has lost pressure on this. Quick Scuttle Crab takes 60 minutes into the game, and Sven can't smite steal without channeling first. And if you take damage, the channel stops, so he's not going to try for that. He's going to pick up for Xmithie.
Darshan does have his teleport up, but there's no wards with great flank position right now, as TSM is getting really aggressive on pushing this turret. TSM's got to be careful and mindful of their flanks, since the Maokai flank is quite threatening when you add to the fact that CLG could follow up with the Sivir and the Karma, so they're kind of backing away from that, just in fear of the potential Maokai teleport.
Absolutely, things to be concerned about. Absolutely, there's a real tank, and it's a good engaged tank that does command respect. CLG now the team actually pushing the mid lanes in, and hoping they can make something happen. Hauntzer just waiting in the wings, and you can see the mid laners kind of trading back and forth, splitting the side waves, looking to create the piece of pressure. Hauntzer wants to go for this. Barrel's going to be forward. The 3 chain gets dodged away by Huhi. Nice try, Hauntzer. Quite
a nice juke by Huhi, just seeing the barrel being placed, putting it together quickly in his mind that it is going to be a chain from that tri-brush and sidestepping to avoid all the damage. Now he roams mid lane, and this could be a collapse.
Not quite going to get some of the Svenskeren, but they are getting pushed away from the turret. Lantern brings Bjergsen to safety, but half HP on Corki is a low health bar right here, but it does mean that CLG, just with that chunk, gets control over the bot river, and that's going to be double Ocean Drake, probably uncontested. TSM do not feel like they can fight this at all.
Yeah, and this is actually quite important in this particular matchup to have the double Ocean Drake on the side of CLG. There's a lot of poke on TSM in siege situations with the Jhin and the Corki, so having double Ocean is going to make that poke very ineffectual and make it so TSM really has to land those hooks or those Ivern Qs in order to start fights, because that double Ocean Drake is going to be massive regen in the middle lane.
It is really going to be significant. Absolutely matters. Ooh, that was nearly a hook onto Xmithie. Didn't even burn Leap to get away. He felt very safe on that, but he's only a few inches away from his Void spikes on his back. Once again, the play for the turret pressure, and yeah, we're seeing a lot of this happen. Both these teams not going for the really big plays, right? It's been 99% wave control, half damage in one champion. Says, okay, you're right, we can't go for Drake. We'll back off and try again later, and it's a very measured game one right now.
Yeah, and depending on where you are on the map from a positional standpoint, like if you're a mid laner or a top laner versus an AD carry and Sivir, your power spike's actually hitting at a different time, which makes these team compositions a little bit peculiar. For instance, Darshan and Huhi kind of want to fight now. GLP for Aurelion Sol is a massive power spike, as well as Sunfire Cape and Ninja Tabi for Darshan. But we look at someone like Stixxay, and he doesn't turn on until he's got Essence Reaver, Infinity Edge, and a Zeal item completed.
Yeah.
Whereas you look at Wild Turtle, and he's big now. Ghostblade Edge of Night is one of the best points in the game for a Jhin. But you contrast that with the Gangplank, who wants to be able to scale up on a few more different axes, and they're strong at different parts of the map, which means when they group together, their power is actually becoming kind of equal, which is one of the reasons neither of these teams is able to push a big advantage.
Yeah, it really is interesting that, because again, it's across different lanes as well. Right? Sivir and Gangplank have similar power curves. Maokai and Jhin are happy right now, and of course those guys are all on opposite sides. So it's just spacing out, it's just timing out, it's just chilling for now.
Yeah, the success will be found if the teams can find skirmishes with their characters who are strong. So
yeah.
TSM wants to fight around Bjergsen and Turtle right now because that's where they're strong. Whereas CLG wants to fight around Huhi and Darshan, while Stixxay keeps the waves pushing in other parts of the map.
And you can see Bjergsen, one of the best power spiking champions, of course, on this Corki. Trinity Force done, sounds great in the mid game. Svenskeren and flanking him to make sure he's safe, and that's going to be the first turret taken in a while. TSM's mid laner making the opening move by just being too strong to duel. See CLG hoping for pressure on the bot side, but not getting a lot out of it. That's pretty much just an unanswered turret kill. And now look how low mid lane is. Just TSM mostly able to use Turtle and Bjergsen as the pressure points, and 3 turrets to 1 now, TSM advantage.
Yeah, Huhi can pick one up in his side lane, but that was a pretty classic Ivern play. You just walk into a lane, throw Daisy at the turret, and push. It forces the other team to have a response, or you just get the turret. Really love that out of Ivern, since you're such a shielding support type champion, you almost want to dare people to dive into you, since I almost like to compare it a lot of times of playing Janna out of the jungle. You have so much shielding and counter engage, and you have so much peel thanks to your Daisy. Just setting up shop and trying to get the team to run into you is oftentimes where you find your biggest advantages, as opposed to aggressively going for picks with your Q. You just see people to come into you with your Q. It's much easier to land that way.
Absolutely. Now we have Darshan, maybe in a bad way, has some MR, but look at the damage up that Bjergsen's got against him. Exhaust is in, and Darshan doesn't really have a way out. Ult's there for damage reduction, trying to juke the skill shots. And look at this damage on the Stixxay. Snipe comes through for Wild Turtle, and all the map is opening up 2 for 0 overall. They can land this Q onto Xpinthy. It could be even more. Rue nearly lands a deadly flourish. The flash, Xpinthy gets away just barely with the skin of his teeth.
Yeah.
TSM map control.
Xpinthy has to dodge everything just to get out of there with his life, and that was TSM forcing fights in the right places. Bjergsen does mainly magic damage, so he can take down Darshan, who's itemized just armor, and then they get Wild Turtle against Stixxay while Hauntzer is pushing the lane and just trying to farm up. So the powerful points we talked about earlier, TSM was able to capitalize on, and they reap the rewards.
See if they can get any more out of this one. Looks like it's just the minion wave control. You can look at the minimap and see that pretty much all that minimap is red. Top, mid, and bot all shoved in. If you watch this fight again.
Oh, and you can see Svenskeren lands that max rank Q for the delayed route. Just has to land one shot because he was solo. And we got to see the Bjergsen solo kill earlier.
Yeah, Huhi was, of course, alone in the bot lane. TSM knew they had a 4v3 in mid, basically, after the early solo kill by Bjergsen as well. Made it even easier. TSM are in the driver's seat, absolutely, and the couple early kills for CLG, even though they had the nice plays, Darshan doesn't get to open up the matchup any farther, such as the life when you're playing Maokai. TSM just got to use their stronger members to wedge the map open, it felt like.
Yeah, exactly, and while they've been doing that, Hauntzer has been catching up completely in this game. He was down about 25 CS very early in the game, but now, thanks to the kill and all the split push, he's actually up in gold. GP has a little bit to do with that with the enhanced gold on Parlay. But the important thing is that while Hauntzer's been catching up, they haven't been punished in map pressure. Darshan unable to create plays with his lead, and now he's pretty much just splitting farm in a side lane with the GP, which is hard to call a big advantage, yeah.
Absolutely. So TSM looking very solid to retained their advantage in this mid-game. Counterlogic Gaming haven't gotten a kill since minute 5. And the turrets they've gotten are ones that have been traded back by TSM within a few seconds. So the Ocean Drakes are nice. I do want to not completely discredit those advantages, but it's still been an uphill battle right now. Counterlogic Gaming losing more and more of the map over time. We'll see what TSM's next aggressive move is. Triple Ocean Drake actually going to be the spawn, and TSM wouldn't mind the resources, but right now CLG puts the pervasive rolls this in, looking for the play. Root on a bio across the juke away from Darshan, and the damage comes in the front line. And here comes Curtain Call. Who he's stuck in the front, has to flash away. Shot's gonna come through. Aftermove pours in a flash, and he will juke that final shot away. Now the Root comes in, and this time Bjergsen overextends into Brush. That's a huge misplay. And Biofrost once again, the target slowed down. Assassin, and one more shot will do it. Sticks through it, the Ricochet gets the kill. Credit 2-0 CLG.
And the beginning of that fight was actually absorbed by TSM quite well until they decided to continue the chase in. And we got to see kind of the lack of tanks in the front line really punishing them right there as Bjergsen was taken down early. Great start of fight there by CLG. Now they're all back at full health, looking to dive more.
Looking to dive more, Darshan putting his gold to work. The invincible Maokai onto the turret. It's 2, it's 3, it's the ace for Counterlogic Gaming.
Such a decisive series of events for CLG, utilizing their initiation ability with the Sivir and the Karma and the Maokai to go all in. The delayed ace leads right into a Baron attempt.
And that's going to be a pretty clean Baron kill. Bjergsen has to make some kind of miracle steal, and he's not even going to try. He's walking bot lane. TSM accepting their defeat with grace. CLG, look at that, 3,000 gold with a Baron buff.
And that's the type of team coordination you want to see out of CLG. To start this fight, TSM absorbed the locket by Svenskeren. Almost looked like it absorbed the Aurelion Soul ult, and you're thinking they've turned this around, and they can just stop right here and reset. The problem, though, is when Bjergsen face checks into a root from Darshan's Maokai. That turns the fight around very easily for CLG. They then just walk through to Biofrost, and here, you can see a bunch of people on CLG are about half health, but double Ocean Drake, they just sit back, they get a little bit of lifesteal off the wave, and now everyone's actually full health for the repeat dive, and TSM has not let their turrets die freely. Smithy jumps in, it's a 3v5, they easily clean them up, and not only do they get the Baron, they also go and pick up their third Ocean Drake.
Triple Ocean Drake, practically invincible to jungle monsters, and they'll recoup any Corki damage as soon as it happens right here. Counterlogic Gaming, I think, feeling pretty good. Mountain Drake gonna be the next one up, which means just to being invincible to Baron, they're going to kill it really fast in 6 minutes if they can grab that as well. CLG, what can they do with this lead now? They've managed to equalize the turret score, pushing for bottom.
They push straight in, especially if they can pick Svenskeren.
That's going to be a lot of damage here. The CC going to layer, but not enough to get him away. It's going to be the Lantern out.
Yeah, but CLG wants to continue this push as much as possible. Haunter is not here. They have the Baron and 5 people. Expect CLG to try and pull the trigger here if they want to go for more.
They found it, flash into Root, onto the Corki, the Gatling gun, the Valkyrie's going to go down anyway. The trigger got pulled. CLG now into the base for as much as they can. Brush to keep him safe, Redemption to heal him up. Haunter can only try to trade turrets best he can.
They at least want the inhibitor out of this, and one thing about Ocean Drake pushes, especially when you have this many, is unless you're killing them, they're going to regen up to full health, so they're going to keep going.
It's like the old Baron buff. It used to give you a ton of health and mana regen in like 2012, and CLG's got the same stats here. Goodbye to Daisy, and the siege is on for that bottom Nexus turret, but they are going to have to back off Darshan. How long will it take to get full health? Well, 5 seconds with the recall. Teleport's still up. They're going to go for
Teleport straight back in. If they get more picks, they're just going to keep going.
Damage on Biofrost. TP's in. They're all very, very low. 15 seconds, 10 now on Bjergsen. Looking to take down some Nexus turrets already. Counterlogic Gaming are decisive as you like it. Here we go. Nexus turret number 2.
Never-ending push.
But Bjergsen has respawn. Sven running out of HP. Turret still a bit low, but it's hitting him back. 1 kill picked up. The second one into Hanser. CLG will not be stopped. They continue to push on in, and they're still going to knock down more and more of the base. The Nexus now left open. Hook on a Huhi, the flash play. They can't make it happen. Stixay wins his duel with Wild Turtle. And after the early game deficit and a comeback for TSM, Counterlogic Gaming closes it out at 27-30.
Just like that. I love the decisiveness and the aggression from CLG, dynamically changing their play style to fit the moment. Triple Ocean Drake. If you ever want an example of how that can be effective, check out that game.
Yeah.
Because that was a never-ending push right at the end there. They forced the right team fights. TSM never had the backline access to be able to close kills because they're mainly a poke team. And since they were never able to close any kills, they could never stop that push because everyone just kept coming back, and it was just very, very well done by CLG down the stretch.
The last 4 minutes of that game is just a clinic on shot calling on CLG's side. Oh, we got the opening pick, Bjergsen face checked. From that moment on, good play, good play, good play, good play, good play. Game ended in our favor. I mean, really immaculate stuff.
Yeah, they were only up 6,000 gold by the end of it. So you could tell they took the small advantage they had and got as much as possible out of it, right? Like that last push. If you even just look at the gold in inventory at the end of that game, there's about 8,000 gold in the inventory of CLG because they never even went back to shop during that Baron push. Massively sized Baron power play, so to speak, at the end of that one. And it's going to be tough for TSM to kind of bounce back from that because it felt like they were in the game until it was over.
The Baron power play was like 4 turrets in the game itself. And the shot calling off because of Ocean Drake, this play was made. Like that was the reason the Drakes were changed in this way, was to allow you to say, ooh, we're in this state, we can play the game differently. Triple Inferno might look better in teamfights, but would not have allowed that kind of game-ending push. So, hey, props to CLG, props to Afro and the rest of the crew for a wonderfully played endgame. But now for a deeper dive into that win, let's check in with our analysts.
Thanks, Freak, and I would like to welcome Aiden Zyrene Moon to the desk. He's going to be joining us. But let's dive into this game. TSM versus CLG. I mean, it did not look the way you expect it to look in a lot of different ways.
Right. CLG is like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, where sometimes it's like, this team is the best shot calling team in the league. They're like crushing it. And then there's just like, you guys are idiots. Like, I don't know what you're possibly thinking.
And we got a lot of that this game too, where it was back and forth. Like, oh man, first 2 kills of the game. And then they didn't get another for the next 18 minutes. But the way that they started the game off was definitely on the right foot for CLG.
And to me, it's not just the shot calling of CLG, it's actually their individual plays. They're able to make such incredibly good plays and then sometimes follow them up with seemingly very boneheaded plays. And it's kind of what you come to expect watching CLG over the years. They have very high highs, they have very low lows. I mean, we saw massive leads developing in the top lane. And all CLG had to do in the early game was kind of just hang out.
Right, and they were winning bot lane really hard, then they make a misplay like this where, Afro goes and roams and Stixxay just doesn't respect the threat level at all.
Yeah, that was incredibly strange. And that happened as well almost simultaneously to Huhi, where he didn't respect the threat level of the Corki in mid lane because the wave's pushing towards him and then he just gets killed there. And this as well is just another great example of they could possibly be there. And I don't blame, Xmithie too hard for that one because they just don't have the vision coverage, and it's a good play by TSM.
Yeah, but then like Darshan was just like the flash forward into nothing. And overall, they're like just so, like even this play right here is such a hard force with a turret up. Like TSM is right back against the turret. They're a team comp that wants to kite with GP, Jin, Corki. They love this situation. And this team fight was just a really bad call by CLG, but a slight overextension by TSM allows Darshan to get a really good root off in turn.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Bjergsen came way too far up there, and it's just kind of showing like how good they can look at times and how bad they can look at times. It's been the story of this team, and you wouldn't have thought that this game would be a long game based off of how it started in top lane with Haunter so massively behind, having blow flash at level 1, dying after he TP'd back immediately, but then TSM was able to get right back in it, and yet it turns around again and the game ends it super fast anyway.
Yeah, and this just ends up being like a really good use of the composition that CLG had made for themselves because it's much more team fighty, right? You have the Sivir synergy with the Aurelion Soul to get Huhi into the thick of the fight, but then you also have a tank, which, is not on the enemy team. TSM does not have a tank. They don't have the reliable CC that a Maokai root can bring. So as soon as their front line starts backing up, which is Daisy, then those fights pretty much collapse in on TSM.
What's so funny is if you look at the beginning of that game and then the end time, you're probably like, oh yeah, they dominated the top lane and then they snowballed through the game, easy game. You would not have expected like that huge dip into TSM's favor because it's just so crazy that like a GP with 10 CS at 5 minutes and the wave frozen on him somehow gets back into the game a little bit and TSM gets a gold lead.
Yeah, I mean, about 10 minutes later, he was actually caught up or heading gold over Darshan after having died, at 4 minutes. His first buy is a Doran's Blade, which is just like, oh God, what is happening?
GP wants that D-Blade to fight for lane. That's what he does.
But I do want to talk about that a bit because those were really unforced errors like you were talking about from CLG where they really don't have to do much there. They can keep playing it out and then they just try to overreach a little too much. And that was really the or the Mr. Hyde that we were seeing.
Yeah, and I think that's why people have CLG kind of so high is because they make these great plays, and then it's not like, oh, we can't keep up with the other team. It's like we just made a bad decision. We tried to force something that doesn't work, and that's why a lot of people think CLG has like this great potential to catch back up to the elite potential with CLG always coming into effect. But you really do think that they have a chance to be competing at the top of the league.
Definitely. Well, one guy who did look like he can compete with the top of the league this game was Darshan on the Maokai, getting our player of the game here. Forces flash solo at level 1 on Haunter. That allows them to execute that kill. Yes, Haunter did kind of get back into the game, but he created a big advantage for themselves. He was also the catalyst to that big teamfight win, getting the pick onto Bjergsen and that turnaround there, which really started to snowball the game and blew it wide open. And the game completely fell apart for TSM after that.
Yeah, it was a good showing for Darshan, which gives CLG fans hope again, because this guy was disappearing a little bit. Last week he was showing up against Cloud9, and now we're like, okay, is this going to continue throughout the series? Because if he's a good strength against Haunter in the top lane, then that's something you can really lean on. And even if you have those mistakes that the rest of your team is making across other lanes, then Darshan can be your rock on that tank, which we just saw pay off in those 20-minute team fights.
I also think it is very important to see him be able to succeed on tanks, because we haven't seen that so far, and he has been looking good on split push. But that's going to be it for us. We're going to step away for a quick break, but when we come back, it's Game 2 between CLG and TSM. Stay with us. You're watching the North American LCS.